Hi, good afternoon. This is Meredith Lego, and I am doing a series of videos on Ascension Science. Much of the content that I get that is being used in this channel comes to me from channeling the content from an ascended master named Hilarion, who essentially I've been able to connect with through quantum entanglement. And although he's not in incarnation right now, he has mastered the need to basically needing to go through the incarnational cycle. So when I connect with him, I'm essentially doing it either during or after meditation, and I come in with a series of questions that I want to learn about, and then he essentially provides the answers. In many cases, a lot of the topics, he actually wanted me to focus on certain topics and learning about certain topics because he had the intention of working on a project with me. And even though I channeled much of the content in 2019 and 2020 that I'm going through now, I'm just taking much of it into sort of sharing it through social media platforms right now. So if you're new to the channel, I highly encourage you to go to the beginning because the concepts he teaches does build upon each other. Kind of like, learning a lesson in school, you kind of start here and then you build upon that with the next concept. So right now what I'm covering are topics around the stages of ascension. And in the last video, we actually touched upon the first stage of ascension, which is really nothing more than getting mastery over the physical body and learning to be grounded or rooted within your body while you're in incarnation. So now I'm going to go on to the second stage or initiation stage for ascension. So the original question that I asked Hilarion in this channeling session was, what are the initiation stages for ascension? So he goes on to describe the second stage by saying, the second stage is working through the emotion energies that plague the being on a continuous basis. Some beings have a limited emotional body, so this integration stage is different for them. The balancing of the emotional body is not an easy task, and the challenges are often in the form of interacting with other beings that can create triggers and challenges meant to intentionally unsettle the emotions. The True Chaela, and if I could pause there, Chaela is nothing more than a spiritual student, basically learning from sort of a master teacher or a teacher. So the True Chaela, who can walk the line of balance during these periods, breathe, and hold a higher perspective of emotional resonance with all that is, are worthy of passing this stage. The Chaela views all as compassion and love for the self and for all that is. This stage is often the most difficult stage, and in fact, many Chaelas are lost from the path at this point. Managing the lessons that open the door for fear and hate lead to negative polarity and low vibration. In those moments, a Chaela must pull out. Even if there was a temporary giving into negative thoughts, pull back and forgive oneself unconditionally. Employ the violet flame during this stage is an important component. Or let me read that again. Employing the violet flame during this stage is an important component. So there was a lot in that particular paragraph. So let me unpack that a little bit. The first thing that I want to say that I didn't start this video with is that he said when he was talking about the first stage, initiation stage of ascension, is that they do somewhat mirror or correspond to the chakra points in the body. So again, if you don't know about the chakra points in the body, I do encourage you to do your own research on them. There is a lot of information out there. So the second stage would therefore connect or associate with the second chakra, which is the Sacral Chakra. And it happens to be located sort of a little bit below the belly button area, maybe like 2 fingers worth. And I'm going to read something from a book, so I didn't channel this from him, but it'll give you a perspective about the purpose of that chakra opening. So through this chakra, we sense our feelings and also acknowledge others' feelings by using the element of water to flow relationally and nurture our creativity. So essentially, it's very much about how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to others. It makes sense because often the things that sort of unbalance our emotions are interactions with the world around us and with other beings in the world around us. So what he says is that, this is a tough stage. Obviously, learning to work with others is not easy. And that probably is a reason for the whole concept of emotional intelligence, or EQ, to be, having come into our consciousness in humanity over the last, I don't even know when it started, but certainly I started seeing books around it the last 20 years or so where, you can actually be tested for your EQ or your emotional intelligence. So he says that, let me kind of find a good sentence here. Yeah, so he says that the balancing of the emotional body is not an easy task, and the challenges are often in the form of interacting with others that create triggers and challenges meant to intentionally unsettle the emotions. So if you go back to some of the previous lessons that we've taken from Hilarion, we essentially are incarnation, we sign up for every experience that we have, and we are sort of we sign up to have certain tests or challenges, and or we manifest those tests and challenges in order to learn and evolve and grow through. So everything that we experience, we are not a victim to. And so it's through those moments that are very hard, and when you're sort of swelled in the middle of them, and let's say situations are tense or emotions are tense, that's a really good time to stop and pause and pull back and think through, why is this happening? What am I supposed to learn through it? But these challenges are actually set up in order to test us, to essentially unsettle the emotions so that we are given a choice in that moment of how to respond in sort of a strong series of polarized energy of how we're going to think, feel, and act in the moment. And that is very much about learning how to control the emotional body. Because obviously when your emotions are unsettled and you're in a tough situation, oftentimes it can shut down maybe the rational mind. And oftentimes, you've seen this, I'm sure, play out. Emotions sort of spew out and blow over, and then some people pull back. So the idea is learning in this stage how to gain control of your emotional body. And as you sort of go through stages of consciousness, excuse me, you learn and you start to take a different perspective of all the things that are going on in your life. And through that, you learn not to be quite as triggered around situations in life as you perhaps were in the past. Some of it could be because you're releasing, let's say, the energies that might have built up from past life situations, or even situations that happened earlier in your current life. So for example, if you had like a bad situation play out or a tough situation play out with a parent as you were growing up, if you can learn to forgive and love unconditionally past that situation, you've released a lot of emotional baggage within your body and what could then be triggers down the road for you. And so if you have like a tense conversation with that parent in the future, if you haven't learned to forgive, that can be a complex situation down the road. And let's say if you haven't, learned to come to terms with that past situation, any interaction with that parent in the future, and or interactions that sort of maybe are similar in content or vibrational frequency to that original event can, swell up a bunch of emotion in you. And let's say even if the original source of that emotion was due to a conversation or an experience with a parent, you might be in the future talking with a friend who had nothing to do with that first source of event. And all of a sudden this emotion is swelling up with you and you're sort of going crazy on your friend. You don't know why. You're sort of releasing a bunch of emotion and you don't know why. Some of that can actually be healing, but at the end of the day, at this stage of ascension, we're learning sort of how to recognize this within ourselves and master it. So he says that a true Chaela who can walk the line of balancing during these periods, breathe, and hold a higher perspective of emotional resonance are worthy of passing this stage. So this would be, let's say you're entrenched in a very, very complex, different, highly emotionally charged event. You have a choice. You can go, off the rails, essentially, and sort of become a part of the energy or feed into the energy in the room, or you can essentially, what he's saying, walk the line of balance, come to a place of neutrality within your heart, within your mental body. Don't let it get the best of you. Sometimes the best thing to do would be to take a step back and exit the room. Maybe that's a good strategy, or to breathe through the moment, because sometimes just taking a deep breath allows you to reset your emotional body and therefore reset maybe the central nervous system. And sometimes that can be what I sometimes do, which is try and pull my consciousness out of my, not like, it's not like I'm like astral projecting out of my body, but essentially I try and take a third person observer view to the situation. So I'm observing me in the situation, I'm observing the other parties, and I'm essentially trying to sort of reflect on what's going on here, how is Meredith reacting in this moment, and what lessons are being taught here. So what am I supposed to learn and or teach through this moment? Which is hard to do because you have to be thinking that at the same time you are entrenched in a difficult, highly emotionally charged situation. So essentially, the more that you learn how to master that, the more that you're worthy, so he says, of passing on to, I would imagine, the third stage of initiation for ascension. And he goes on to say that the Chaela views, at this point, all as compassion and love for the self and for others. So if you go back to my reading of what that second chakra is about, it's really about acknowledging your feelings and others' feelings. So in that moment, and I have to imagine high empathic individuals, are probably in the process of going through this stage, or maybe have mastered this stage in their consciousness evolution, is that you feel what other people are feeling. Without them even having to tell you what they're going through, because you can literally feel their energy as one with you. You feel connected to them. And at this stage, you essentially are open enough, your chakras are open enough in order to absorb the subtle energies that they might be giving off, and to understand exactly what they are going through, because you can feel it. And you can also obviously feel what you're going through, but you have more empathy because you understand what those around you are going through. He says that this stage is often the most difficult stage, and many Chaelas that are on the ascension path, and the initiation path specifically, are lost along this point. I think we all go through this stage. Every single being ascends. It's not like it doesn't happen. It happens for everybody, but it's probably the longest stage, if you will, because it's the most difficult to gain control of the emotional body. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that's worth unpacking, but I think those are probably the most important points. So at this point in the session, I ask him, well, how long does this stage take? And he says that the stage or level is entirely dependent on the Chaela and the level of effort, will, and determination their higher self and ego personality are willing to apply. Forgiveness and compassion in the face of hate, judgment, and evil are not an easy task. That makes sense So it's not like we're bound by some clock or time frame, in order to get through these stages. It can happen very quickly. It can take a very, very long time, but it will happen. And essentially it kind of depends upon the individual soul, the individual being, how much level of effort they want to put into it, which requires a lot of will and a lot of determination. So, I found that as I'm going through this experience, I have to invest time to meditate. I have to invest time for personal reflection. I have to invest time when I'm in these highly charged moments of not engaging in it, but pulling myself out of the situation in order to see it as a learning opportunity and then to process what I'm supposed to be learning in that moment or what I might be able to teach and offer others in that moment. And that takes, again, a lot of effort and a lot of will. Then I asked, how is this different than the integration of the upper chakras? So the upper chakras, again, if you're not familiar with the chakra system, I encourage you, but when you get past the sacral chakra, you're moving into your solar plexus chakra, which is above the belly point, sort of in your gut area. And that's essentially allowing you to gain mastery or will over your situation. And then you move into your heart chakra, your third chakra, your third eye, and then your crown chakra. And really the chakras sort of at the heart and above are what are considered to be the higher chakras. There's other chakras as well, but I won't go into that. He says that, so again, the question was, how is this different than the integration of the upper chakras? He says that this stage is managing the energies that form from the emotional body within the physical body, to not let the emotions run amok and spew wildly, as you might say. For an intellectual being does not wildly flow in the world. They understand the significance of negative thoughts, words, and actions as a creation of form and only use it to create love and energy and light. The energies are maintained within, processed, and balanced instead of freely being consumed by other beings. This is the case for negative emotions. A being who masters this step freely offers positive emotions of love, compassion, empathy when they are appropriate for the situation. The balancing of the emotional energies is an important step and often the hardest. So that also is equally sort of a thick paragraph as well. But what he says is that essentially, we can be in a situation, as I talked before, where energies and emotions can run amok. Like you can let your, emotions spew everywhere. But as you get to a point, even if you kind of know about sort of the quantum field or the energy field, you have a lot of individuals who you can see have mastered the step because they realize that taking their energies down dark places when they're highly emotional doesn't really do anybody a lot of good. It just creates worse situations. So they've probably already learned through many, many past life trials that it's not even worth going there. But in some cases, you, if you're watching this channel, your higher self wanted you to start understanding this, just like I wanted myself to start understanding this, that we have the ability to literally manifest our reality based upon our thoughts, our intentions, our feelings, and the energy, the vibrational energies that we're giving off. So not only did we, come into incarnation with certain contracts of what we wanted to experience, but as we're going through the incarnational experience in form, in body form, in physical form, we essentially have the ability to manifest certain timelines in front of us based upon all of these vibrational energies that we're giving off. And when you know the fact that negative energies can actually circle back around to impact you, why would you do that? Why would you continue to do that? And it takes every single moment of every single day to think through how am I thinking right now? What am I saying? What am I manifesting into the world? And you will be challenged you can most certainly understand that you will be challenged. You are put to tests. So as you start to, learn this understanding, you will be given situations that will put that to the test, where, something that traditionally has triggered you will be put in front of you. And the question is, what choices do you make in that moment? How much have you truly mastered that understanding? And it is not easy. I am constantly put to the test. I'm trying to think of what else. So the only other thing that I can offer is that he didn't get into is, so again, he didn't necessarily touch upon this in the channeling, but I did want to share this because I thought it was pretty interesting. So words that we give off have enormous impact in the world around us, and the vibrational energies that we give off, as you've seen in the past lessons, have enormous impact in the world around us. There was a series of different researchers in the past that I think have really brought this into help us understand this a little bit more. Maybe I'll do some videos on them. But one of them that I want to highlight really quickly is, I don't think he's officially a doctor, but his last name is Emoto. And he was a Japanese researcher who essentially started to research what happens to water as it's starting to crystallize into a more of a former state when certain emotional frequencies are around it during that time. So again, everything is energy, and every energy is sort of giving off a vibrational frequency. So what he found is that water, as it was starting to crystallize in a frozen form, when there was individuals around that freezing process that were giving off a love or positive, using positive words, anything that would be associated with a higher vibrational frequency of gratitude and love, that water was starting to crystallize into a highly structured geographic shape that would be like beautiful snowflake formations. At the same time, water, as it was starting to crystallize, but was around energies that were, call it, lower in vibrational frequency, and that's usually associated with like hate, fear, anger, anything that you can kind of think that brings your energy down. That water was formulating or starting to crystallize in very blotchy, unstructured ways. So that's important because obviously mastering your own emotional body is really key, and then being mindful of the energies that you're giving off. If you think about it, humans are 70% water. And so, if you go back to the last few lessons that I talked about, I think I got into the whole concept of cymatics and how vibrational frequencies can affect the formation of patterns and physical matter in our manifestation. Again, we're 70% water. So when you're thinking about things to say and you're saying things, just understand that your words and your thoughts have a material impact on other human beings, other beings around you, even plants and animals. Believe it or not, we are all connected. So that's something to understand, and obviously it impacts your own body as you're going through it. Just as a quick story, I was in a highly charged emotional situation in an employment situation. So in this particular case, I'm in a role where sometimes I am dealing with the executive leadership teams, and I was in a meeting with the CEO of the company. This is a 30,000 person company, and he was not, call it, spewing off wonderful emotions. They were very highly charged negative emotions, and he was using what I would say would be negative words. And I stopped him right there in the meeting. It took a lot of guts for me to basically say, do not do that to me. I'm not going to allow these energies to be around my body, and this is why. So I explained to him exactly what I just explained to you about the lessons of Emoto, and he had obviously not heard about that, but when he learned about it, he actually said, I had no clue, and I will never do that again around you, certainly. I'm like, hey, you're a leader, you shouldn't do it in general. So he actually thanked me for that, because I don't think he really understood the effects that his intentions and his actions were creating on others. So I was able to shine a little bit of light and knowledge on him. Hopefully he'll remember that into the future. So again, with that, the emotional body is really hard to master. And I know that I'm personally, at this stage and starting to move into the next stage, but that's essentially the second stage of ascension, is learning to master the emotional body. So with that, if you have any questions that you'd like to know more about this content, I encourage you to write it in the comments section, because I'd love to know, what you're thinking and what you're curious about, because maybe I can approach Hilarion on it. But in general, if this content does resonate with you, I encourage you to, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and then sign up for alerts so you can see when I'm posting additional content. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.